Welcome to today's webinar, Transparency is the New Green in Product Selection and Specification. Today's topic is using the EC3 tool and Transparency Catalog to make lower embodied carbon decisions. We thank everyone for taking time out of their busy day, and we have a lot of content prepared for you today with our special guest, Stacy Smedley. Hi, Stacy.
Hello, Terry and everybody.
Do you have any caveats you want to set at the agenda?
Yes, as we all know, we're all working, I think we're all working from home, at least I know I am. And I've got my 8-year-old son who might pop out and ask me for something. And I've got my 1-year-old pug that might snort or bark during the presentation. So just if you hear snoring, it's not me or anyone on the call, it's my pug.
Yeah, I like how the stay-at-home modality is making things kind of cash. So with that, we're going to dive into all this content. Just so that you know, it is being recorded. You will get the link. We're going to invite you to leave your comments when you leave the webinar. We hope you do. And you can also request the deck. So we want everybody to have access to this content. And during the webinar, as you have questions, please post them into the questions panel. And some of them may actually get answered by Stacy and me in real time. And any others that don't get answered, we will definitely follow up with you and get those answered. So here's what we're going to cover today. We're going to do an introduction to sustainable mines for those of you who are new to us. And we'll also talk about what brought sustainable mines and EC3 together and what we're doing together. Then we're going to flip it over to Stacy, and she's going to dig right into an EC3 demo, demonstrating how to select lower embodied carbon products for projects. She's going to share some success stories from early users, and maybe some of those building project success stories. Stacy, if you can shoot from the hip on those. She's going to cover the different user account types because we're going to be encouraging everybody who's not yet signed up for an EC3 account to do that. And she'll also talk about that the fact that the tool is in beta, that there are preliminary product categories currently published in EC3. There's a whole bunch of them in pilot, and there will be more coming over time. Then we're going to move into the EC3 methodology, how the tool uses EPD data. And Stacy and I are going to both contribute to that section because the EC3 methodology the development was led by Kate Simonen at the Carbon Leadership Forum, and then we worked closely with Kate and her team to translate the extensive methodology into something that's simple to understand, or as simple as it can be to understand, and to use that data. And that's what we've integrated into the Transparency Catalog. We're going to show you that, and then really drive home why plant and product specific EPDs are the way of the future. And then we'll dive into a Transparency Catalog demo, and we'll show you how we're integrating the EC3 tool results into manufacturers' listings, how we've made it super easy to find manufacturers and their products in each master format, division, and section, because it's all about specifying and then procuring the actual products from the actual plants. So you can calculate the actual embodied carbon impacts, and how Sustainable Mines is working to make it easier for manufacturers to create environmental product declarations that are plant and product specific and really drive the cost down and deliver them in a more useful form, which is digitally. And then we'll have time for some FAQs that Stacy and I have prepared, and then more Q&A that comes up that we haven't yet addressed. All right, so just to set the stage, This webinar is designed for both manufacturers and building professionals, architects, engineers, contractors, and owners to attend. Sometimes we do webinars that are specific to an audience, but because this is two sides of the same coin, we think it's important as often as possible to deliver the same message to both audiences at the same time so they can hear the needs of each other. And so that's one of these, this is one of those webinars where the premise is that using EPDs to make decisions about products based on environmental performance metrics isn't simple. And now the EC3 tool makes it simpler. So the users in this scenario are architects, engineers, contractors, and owners who both want, and we're going to go out on a limb here and say need, to design and build lower embodied carbon buildings. And manufacturers who are investing in creating environmental product declarations, both need and want to use the knowledge from the life cycle assessment, which is the underlying document of an EPD. They want to make lower embodied carbon products. They also want to be able to compete on this metric because it's a metric their customers care about. And they want to be sure that if they're investing this time and money to be transparent, to take the risk, to provide the data the market is asking for, they really want to feel confident that those products are going to get into the spec and get into the project. So it's important that the market support those manufacturers and help them win more business. And so that's the story that Stacy and I will be telling today, both sides of the same coin, to address the goals of each user, because ultimately the end goal is the same, is that everybody wants to create a built environment that has less impact on human health and the natural environment. So a little bit about Sustainable Minds. We've been in the business of LCA since the company started. I'm Terry Swack, the founder and CEO. My background is actually design, and I got involved in design for the internet, for the web, really kind of at the beginning of designing for the internet. And so my skill set is to build technical tools that simplify technical information into the best user experience for the people who the tools are built for. And when product transparency became a thing, when LEED version 4 was introduced in draft in 2012, which effectively said it's not going to be enough moving forward to report single attributes like recycled content or distance from plant to project to be able to evaluate the impacts of products. It's really time to enforce a standardized scientific method that everybody uses across the board the same way. And there was already a technical standard for doing that, ISO 14025 and the whole 14040 and 44 series for how to do LCA, which at the time, I don't think people understood the technical challenge that including those standards in the LEED program was going to present. But things really are kind of working themselves out over time as people have dug in and tried to make the best of it. And so that's what we've done too, is we became a program operator. We deliver LCA and material evaluation services. And because we're a cloud software provider, we became a program operator and we deliver technical services so that we have the technical knowledge to build credible and easier to use tools that ultimately meet the objectives of both of the types of users that we introduced on the previous page. Now, Stacy and I did this webinar last week, and we got one comment from an attendee who said that we should have explained what environmental product declarations were right up front. So we're going to do that. This is a slide that, Stacy, why don't you speak to this slide? This is one that you use pretty often. How do you guys think about EPDs?
Sure, yeah, so I like to explain it like, to make the analogy of it being a nutrition label for, the environmental nutrition label for a building product. So when you look at a nutrition label on a piece of food, there's a serving size and all the different metrics that you want to look at, like carbohydrates per serving size. And on an environmental product declaration, it's basically creating that same nutrition label for a building material. So here you can see this is for concrete. The declared unit or serving size is a cubic meter. And basically the carbohydrate or the kilograms of CO2 per that cubic meter is listed. So when we're talking about how to use environmental product declarations for embodied carbon, it's really finding this nutrition label within the PDF of the environmental product declaration, where it's rolling up all the background data into these numbers that we can then do the math with.
Right, so this slide, which I really like a lot, simplifies the intent of an environmental product declaration, but we're going to dig in today for the benefit of the manufacturers on the call and the AECOs on the call to have some deeper understanding and some empathy for what manufacturers actually have to do to create an EPD. We're going to go into the challenges that today that exist with EPDs and also talk about how amazing the EC3 tool methodology is to be able to acquire data from these tools and apply a methodology and turn it into something that makes it possible to make decisions with today. And in fact, the creation of this tool and the use of the data in EPDs is starting to drive change in the world of program operators and LCA. So we're all pretty excited about that. But the reason that Sustainable Minds and Building Transparency, which is actually the organization that Stacy is the executive director of, that owns the EC3 tool, the reason we came together is because we align on this single goal, which is to simplify finding and specifying lower embodied carbon construction materials. And the EC3 tool makes it easy for people to find those tools, and the transparency catalog makes it really easy to find those manufacturers in each master format, division, and section in a click and in a glance. And we're gonna look at that. We together are making it possible to find all the EPDs from a manufacturer in the EC3 tool and be able to compare the embodied carbon results and start modeling a project. And if a user is in the EC3 tool and already modeling a project and then drilling down to the manufacturer and the EPD level, they're going to be able to go directly into the transparency catalog to essentially connect the last mile between that specifier, that procurement person, that designer with the manufacturer, because in the transparency catalog are a bunch of ways to contact the manufacturer, get more information about the product, and make sure that it gets into the spec. So we're going to show you a demo of this. There's cross two-way linking between the material category, the EPD, digital EPD page that Stacy's going to talk about, and then a link right here to the manufacturer's transparency catalog listing. In the EC3 tool, there's also a company page, and from that company page is a link directly to the transparency catalog listing, and you'll see the content that both tools provide. So Stacy, I'm going to make you the presenter and have you do your demo.
Okay. I'll wait till my screen, show my screen. All right, Terry, can you see my screen?
I can.
Okay. So hello, everyone. Again, my name is Stacy Smedley. I am currently the executive director of buildingtransparency.org, which is a new nonprofit that's the home for the continued management and development of the EC3 tool. And I'm going to walk through today just kind of how do you log in, and then show you how the tool can actually be used to look at materials and compare them on their carbon emissions. So first of all, just our landing page is buildingtransparency.org. If you need to register for the tool, you can click up here to register for free. And you fill out a form and you'll get a confirmation. You can access the tool pretty much right away. So once you've done that, you can sign into the tool. I'm going to sign into my Building Transparency account, which is my public user account. So I'll start here. When you log in, what you're going to see right away is the snapshot of the material categories that we currently include in the tool, as well as a number of specific environmental product declarations we have per category. And this is dynamic, so it updates as we update and add EPDs. It shows you how many of those are industry EPDs in purple and how many are product-specific EPDs in teal. And you can see here, this also shows us where we have, thousands of EPDs when it comes to concrete mixes versus tens of EPDs when it comes to wood. So if we're trying to figure out where to focus, asking for more environmental product declarations or seeing where there might be gaps, this is just helpful in terms of understanding what the market is. Over on the left-hand side is where all of the different functions live. The first one is the find and compare materials feature, and this is where you can actually dig into those material categories you saw in that graph. Before I move on to that, I'm just going to show you the user groups, and I'm going to demonstrate this by a couple different ways. First, you're going to see, your name up here. Here I am as Ordinary Stacy in my Building Transparency public account. And then right next to that, it's going to show you what kind of user you are. And this is set up between private and professional based on security privacy laws that we have to follow, GDPR privacy laws. So the minute that you sign up, you're going to be a private user. If you can confirm your professional organization that you work for, so that you've got a professional corporate kind of email address and designation, you'll be turned into a professional user once you fill that in on your profile page. And then the next phase up from that is pilot user, which are the folks that are our pilot partners that are actually sponsoring the development of the tool, but also meeting with us biweekly to test new features of the tool. So here you can see that they're getting early access to more material categories, which I'll demonstrate in a second. Other features that we're testing, enterprise features, so more projects and how to do benchmarking, and then calls with the development team. And this final level is curator, and these are folks that actually have access into the EPD records. So EPDs are third-party verified documents, and we really only want the folks that verified them or folks on the EC3 team that are sanitizing and digitizing them from the PDFs to be able to do some of these things. So that's just to show you how that lines up, and this is again available for reference just by clicking that button. What you can see here is that on the public version, we have these categories. On the pilot version, we're actually tracking a lot more and have a lot more EPDs from other categories that we're building out. So if you open this up as a pilot partner, you're going to see all sorts of things with pilot by it that only the pilot partners have access to now, but we are planning on pushing a lot of these things out to the public version as they are tested and the methodology is applied. So if I go back to the public level account, again, there's the 9 categories in the public version of the tool. If I click one of these arrows open, it's going to show you how that breaks down into further categories within that larger one. If I click on ready mixed concrete, it's going to tell me that's what I'm currently searching in and give me the master format associated with that. And then for each of one of these materials, it's going to let you put in specific information or search filters based on what the materials allow. So on what the EPDs allow. So you'll see here, if I put in 5,000 PSI, I can search by that function. I can also put in a geographic location, either country or state. I'm in Washington. I know we have EPDs for concrete in Washington, so I'm going to set that as a filter. There are all these other things that you can filter by, but I always suggest just starting with a simple level of filters. It'll show you what they are down here in these chips. And then you simply just click search. And what it's going to do is return you a whole bunch of information. So I'm going to scroll down first just a little bit. The first thing it will do is return all the industry EPDs associated with your search, if they exist. And then it will tell you how many product-specific EPDs we have. So here's 235 product-specific EPDs for 5,000 PSI concrete mixes in Washington State. And it's also doing some math for me, again, taking that kilogram of CO2 number from each individual EPD and giving us some metrics of rolling those all together. We'll also tell you the declared unit over here on the right. Up here in this box plot diagram, what you're seeing, again, is the declared unit, so reminding you of that. And then it's going to show you a few things. But the first is just the range of kilograms of CO2 per declared unit for all of those EPDs that returned. So this is saying the max number is 689 kilograms of CO2. That's the highest one that we have. The lowest is 144 kilograms. And what we do is we take the 20th percentile as the achievable and the 80th percentile as the conservative to give us this kind of range of what's reasonable. And that's really to throw out any outliers that may have, done something either very progressive with a mixed design or a very unique situation that has an EPD, and also just kind of focus your attention on where the 60% of the data lives. So that's what that green rectangle always represents. The other thing you're going to see is a CLF baseline that appears. This is actually a national baseline, and there's a document associated with this that you can find on the CLF website that actually goes through and talks to you about how those baselines were set and gives you a table of what they are. We are currently using the high baselines because we want to incentivize disclosure and also start from what we think is probably a conservative number based on this assessment from the CLF. So again, you can find this document on the Carbon Leadership Forum website. If I go back to my search, the next thing that I can do, which is really where you start to get into the assessment of the data, is come down here and look at the information per EPD. So you've got details that we've been able to pull out of the EPDs. For concrete, we have an API, so these are all digitally transferred EPDs. So we're pulling out everything we can from that, that transfer. You can click on the details button, and what that's going to do is open up that particular EPD's data. It's going to show you where that EPD falls against the search that you did and the baseline. And I'm going to open up the actual EPD to show you what that blue squishy stuff is real quick. You can go to the digital version of the EPD. So again, this is us taking what are typically PDFs and creating a digital version where we've created fields and put in all the information that we could pull out, including things like the expiration dates, but also assess the EPD for certain things. And this is 4 categories that were set up based on metadata, which is something that came out of Sweden for assessment and comparability of EPDs, but also something that the Carbon Leadership Forum then fine-tuned as part of our process last year. What you're seeing here is methodology that's looking at if that EPD is manufacturer-specific, plant-specific, product-specific, and just-in-time we aren't currently using, because that would mean that we were getting the data as it was being delivered to site. That's a future state. And then what it does is assess a variability around the declared number based on that information. So as you select or unselect this, which only the program operator or someone on the EC3 CLF team can do, it would actually make this blue squishy stuff larger or smaller. And we call this the burden of the doubt method. We want the data to get more aligned when it comes to how it is reported in environmental product declarations. We also want it to get more transparent and less average. So that's really what this is trying to do. If I go back to the find and compare materials portion again, the last thing that is one of the biggest components of the find and compare materials function is this compare button. So this is where you can actually look at your search that you did, remember what you searched for, and then look at actual manufacturer supplier data. So this is looking at our 2 suppliers in Washington that currently have EPDs. There's Cal Portland's, 60% of their EPDs are coming in here for this search. And 60% for Stoneway are here. So directionally, if you're looking at, trying to figure out who is currently the best performer when it comes to emissions, this directionally shows you that information. It's also really helpful if you're trying to set potentially a maximum kilograms of CO2 for a spec or a bid document. If you draw a line across, you can understand if it seems reasonable that you're going to be able to get results from multiple manufacturers, or potentially even just set a reduction target for a category in a spec or with an owner. I'm just going to go through one more material really quick. I know this is a lot of information, but we have a lot to cover. I'm going to do the same thing for carpet. So if I go to flooring and carpet, again, giving you things that are particular to carpet that you can search by. If I go to carpet tiles, I'm going to take off the Washington filter. I'm going to put in USA. I'm going to click search. Again, it's giving me all those same things. It's telling me how many EPDs I have in this data set, giving me all the information. And then, of course, giving me that range up here at the top that I mentioned with the baseline. The baseline's high here because one of the other things that we found when you look at data is that a lot of the times the folks with the lower emitting products are providing the EPDs because they know that they are doing well. So it's not particularly representative of the entire category when it comes to all available products. So this is part of the methodology of these baselines, is to provide room for further disclosure and allow those doing really well to show drastic improvements over that. If you click on the compare button again, what you're going to see here is all the disclosed suppliers, and then again their ranges. If they've just got dots, that's how many EPDs they have currently. So you have to have a number of EPDs to start to get to the range level here. But again, directionally, you're going to see that interface looks like the lowest, and this also allows you to then dig into the data and find out that perhaps Milliken's carpet tiles are thicker and more residential, and that might be why they're higher. So there is some brain juice that needs to be used once you can see this data to really dig into it and understand it. But directionally, it's showing you, where everyone's falling and allowing you to, again, potentially set some limits or targets based on this data. I'm going to go into the project level just for a minute. So again, I'm in my pilot user account because I'm going to show a couple of features that aren't publicly available yet. If I go into this demo building, this is where you can actually create buildings where you roll up this data and multiply it by quantities. So you put in information about your project. If you put a location, it will allow you to search and filter the materials by radius. If you go down here, what you're going to see is how the quantities get entered, either by hand through just a scrape over of data from a construction estimate. They can also be imported from BIM 360 or from a Tally export if you're using whole building LCA software with Tally. So again, you can see the description, the quantity, and then you actually do the search directly from this page. If you're doing it at the building level, it will allow you, once you've done the search, to select the material that you know you are using. So you can use this to start to set maximums and minimums, but then also once you've procured the material, if I know that this was the mix that I used, I can just simply click on it. It's going to tell me that's my selected material. I'm going to click save and update all the elements that are that material. And then what has just been pushed out in the pilot version is the ability to then create a selected versus baseline report, where it's actually going to show you how well you did from the building level for that baseline versus the achievable 20th percentile, and then the realized savings based on those EPDs that you selected. And it breaks it out per category. This is just a structural model. So you're seeing that it's only showing you how you did for those materials that you've included, left all the others blank. The other thing that you've probably seen before, if you've seen presentations on EC3, is the Sankey diagram. So again, it's just kind of a 1-2 punch. You can do your searches and get the ranges of available reduction per category based on your searches in those 80th and 20th percentile marks. See where the bigger impacts are, set targets and reductions, and use this to help clients understand the reductions possible. And then again, once you've selected your products, you can come back in, select your EPDs, and actually report out what you actually did. This ties to the lead pilot credit also that is currently available for 4.1. With that, I think, Terry, I'm going to stop. I could go on forever, but there's a lot more to talk about.
No, Stacy, every time I watch you demo, I learn something new.
Okay, well, that's good.
Yeah, so hard to not have you go on forever. All right, great. Thanks, Stacy. Yeah, this last release you and Phil pushed had some cool stuff in it, and that comparative result is pretty nice. I like that. Okay, so we're going to talk now about a little bit more about that EC3 methodology, how EPD data is used, and to understand how that EPD data is used, we have to go all the way back up to the creation of product category rules. And so here's a quick screenshot of the North American PCR catalog that Sustainable Minds put together a few years ago. We curate it, we update it once a month. There was no place anywhere where anyone could go to find out, is there a product category rule for products? In this case, we've organized them by master format division. PCRs don't typically have master format division or section numbers in them, so we organize them that way. And creating PCRs is creating a technical standard according to a bunch of international standards. It can be a lengthy process. Sustainable Minds has created a pretty easy to use 2-part PCR program. A lot of PCRs got created in the 2015, 2014 timeframe, 2016, but the PCRs are valid for 5 years. And what we've not seen is really the uptake in the renewal of PCRs that are expiring or coming due, or really creating that many more. So we actually track, no surprise, we track how many PCRs there are and how many EPDs got created from those PCRs and how many manufacturers are participating in each master format section. And what's surprising, and we're going to see what we can do about this, is there's a lot more PCRs expiring than there are new ones getting created, which means there could be a slowdown in this data that needs to be created. So we're actually, Sustainable Minds and the American Center for Life Cycle Assessment, the PCR committee, we are working on some new PCR guidance that takes into consideration EPD comparability and requirements that the industry is looking for to update those reporting requirements to help facilitate the creation of better data, but also to help facilitate the creation of more PCRs. This is all the stuff that's hard about reporting for manufacturers today. There's inconsistency in the way each EPD program operator runs their technical program. The EPD that they create at the end, even though it's based on the same technical standards, they all look different. They all have different amounts of content. The content is laid out differently. And they're all delivered as PDFs, which means the data is encoded in that PDF document. And as Stacy pointed out, and making a point of saying, they've created a digital EPD, what they're having to do is essentially machine read those PDFs, trying to extract the global warming data that and a few other pieces of key data to be able to put that data into their database to run those modeling engines. And that is a really, really big challenge. The bottom line, though, for manufacturers is it's an expensive process. And if now the market is asking for plant-specific and product-specific EPDs, if the costs stay the same as they are today, it becomes absolutely cost prohibitive for manufacturers who have multiple products and multiple manufacturing facilities to create an EPD for each product at each plant. And the reason that plant and product specific is important, if you go back to thinking about the EC3 tool being a procurement tool, where at the end of the day, it really is about selecting the manufacturer in the right geographic region related to your building project to be able to understand the actual embodied carbon impacts of products made in that facility, so that when you run that Sankey diagram and you run those comparative results, you're seeing the actual embodied carbon impacts of products made in those facilities rather than data provided in the way most EPDs are done today, are in the EPD rolls up data from multiple manufacturing facilities if the same product is made there. And so in the EC3 tool methodology, it's created to effectively penalize manufacturers for providing non-specific data. So data that's been aggregated is non-specific, and we'll get into that in a minute. So, right now manufacturers are a little bit between a rock and a hard place. They're like, geez, we just did our EPDs and we've got 5 plants and 5 product lines. This is going to cost us a fortune, to redo. But the good news is the industry is really becoming aware of that, and Sustainable Minds has been on the forefront of creating our EPD. We call ours a transparency report. It's an EPD that integrates product transparency with product marketing, so that now that environmental performance is one of the criteria that people use to make comparative decisions between manufacturers' products and between other manufacturers' products, you want everything that you're going to use to make a decision about a product in one place. So all of the features and functionality and information about what is the manufacturer actually doing to improve, help me understand these results, access to the specifications, access to all of the other certifications. You kind of want that all in one place, and you want it to be digital. Encoding data in PDFs is, I'm going to show my age here, but I'm going to say it's very 1990s, where you can't uncouple form and content. And so we've really focused on delivering digital transparency reports, or EPDs, and now all of the EPDs that Sustainable Minds creates, part of our deliverable is to get that data into the EC3 tool right when that EPD is published. And so it's there and it's accurate. This is an example. These are some of the manufacturers that we've worked with. And you can see it looks like a great, online microsite. They all are only 3 pages with everything a user needs right in the front. On the first page, all the functional performance, environmental performance, access to the specs, all of the certifications, all ultimately in a downloadable zip file. So everything is right there if you're going to specify those products into a project. Like I said, it's in 3 pages. We make the LCA results understandable by providing the interpretation. And then this content is optional, but this is where the manufacturer can talk about what they're doing in any or all of the life cycle stages where they're investing in performance improvements to help make these LCA results more understandable. And again, being focused now on delivering plant and product-specific results, the manufacturer shouldn't have to create, 5 times 5, 25 EPDs. That isn't how their salespeople want to use content. It isn't how you want to use it. So our multi-plant transparency reports simply take the data from each facility and provide that separately, all in the context of one EPD that tells the product story, but provides the technical data separately. And we have a whole approach to how the LCA should be done as a model in the LCA tool, where that model gets verified. And then there's very little verification that needs to happen for each EPD. So any manufacturer who's on the call, who's interested in learning more about this approach, we're excited to share this approach with you and tell you more about how you can do that. But getting back to the EC3 tool methodology, when it launched, I wrote this article, again, trying to convey the challenges that the EC3 tool methodology has done its best to address, and the challenges that the industry of program operators, LCA providers have to really step up to listen to what the industry is asking for. And I can tell you that that's happening. So I'm going to throw it back to Stacy for another minute to just drill into the methodology, and then I'm going to show you how we've connected that into the EC3 tool.
Sure. So just, what EC3 is doing is not rocket science. It's really taking material quantity estimate data that's coming again from construction estimates, BIM models, or whole building LCA exports from Tally, and multiplying it by that kilogram of CO2 per unit of material to give you basically a carbon estimate for your project if you're doing it at the project level. And Terry, I don't know if you want me to go into the methodology from a what the methodology in terms of each material is really digging into what the current issues are with comparability of EPDs within a category based on current product category rules and based on what data is used in the LCAs that complete those EPDs, and really creating reports that are talking through that so we can work towards more aligned, more transparent data within EPDs. And then again, the general methodology is how we assess each EPD for variability along those categories and roll that up into the 80th and 20th percentile data sets.
Do you want to talk about the burden of the doubt methodology, why 20th to 80th percentile?
Sure. So the burden of doubt methodology comes into account actually in multiple places. So it starts with that assessment at the EPD level, where we are, assessing the data and how transparent and accurate it may be, and taking that the high estimate of that variability as a declared number. So we want folks to drive towards better data. At the material search side of things, when you're doing your searches and it gives you that box plot, the reason that we set everything at the 80th percentile is, again, from a conservative standpoint, and the Clf baseline even higher than that, is due to the fact that we want to incentivize disclosure. Again, I think I said that before, but we want to set a high starting point to allow more manufacturers to disclose and feel comfortable disclosing, as well as being more realistic in terms of where those numbers really are based on the lack of complete data from all products. And then again, as I was talking about, when it comes to the product level variability on the EPD data, we were seeing there, as Kate's kind of markup of how we were looking at this when we were just thinking through it and explaining it, it really is a percentage variability on top of that declared number. That allows you to understand, again, the blue squishy stuff, which is my non-technical term that I use, understand just, that there is this kind of squishiness in that declared number based on maybe potential averaged emissions factors being used for some of the streams, or the fact that it's not getting to that product specific level, that it's for multiple products or multiple plants. So that's just a daylight that for everyone. So we start to understand that. I know as a person that was trying to compare EPDs in the past, before this existed, I was not aware of the fact that I shouldn't just take that number and compare it to another number in another EPD. And that's really not allowed from an ISO perspective unless you are assessing the uncertainty.
Right. So in this digital EPD inside the EC3 tool, what it's telling the user when you look there is there are 5 attributes in the methodology that assign that amount of uncertainty, that blue squishy stuff, as Stacy has described it. Today, only 3 are in use. Is it manufacturer specific? Is it plant specific? Is it product specific? So this is the alternative to industry-wide. So is it from a manufacturer, a single plant, or a product? And when it's not, the methodology applies that blue squishy stuff because now it's less specific, it's more uncertain. So what we did was we worked with Kate and her team for a number of months to try to take what's a very sophisticated approach to data analysis and presentation and fit it all into a single tooltip so that when we add the data to the transparency catalog, users can quickly get a tiny little tutorial overview of what does it mean, how were those values calculated. And so in this little tooltip, we explain what is the EC3 tool. Here's a 1-paragraph definition of the methodology, talking about the burden of doubt, applying a plus or minus uncertainty value when the data is not specific, and with a big reminder that results aren't precise, they're directionally correct. And it isn't always indicative, the result is not always indicative of a low embodied carbon product if the data in the EPD is non-specific, meaning if it was a multi-product EPD or multi-plant facilities rolled up into the single one. So again, it's directional information. And then what we did was we kind of deconstructed this 20th to 80th percentile range and came up with a key so that literally in a glance, people would be able to see this, that this information is available, and here's what it means. And if there's no EC3 result for an EPD, it can mean that that category is not in the EC3 tool yet, or that the EPD hasn't been able to be machine read yet, or the category is not available, which is the first thing I said. So now as we get into the transparency catalog, the listings are designed, the product table in the listing is designed to let the user see all the products the manufacturer has in a certain master format section, linking to the product page in their website, and then showing you in the vertical axis the types of transparency disclosures they have, whether they have EPDs or which types of material ingredient disclosures they have. Someone asked a question earlier, so I'll make the point here that every type of disclosure, environmental performance, which are EPDs or verified LCAs, and every material ingredient disclosure that's been identified as eligible to earn credits in any of the rating systems that reward transparency are all displayed in the transparency catalog. We include everything if it's accepted by one or more of the green building rating systems, which actually brings me to the point. So now when you use the catalog and filter by master format, division, and section, because the transparency catalog is ultimately a specification tool, now you'll be able to compare those EC3 tool results also in a glance, and continue to filter down to just what you want to see. Here's a quick preview. Today, at this very same time, Kate Simonen and Manuela Toro from Sustainable Minds are doing a webinar with the USGBC-LA talking about the California Buy Clean program. And what we can preview with you right now is that we are working with the California DGS to identify the master format sections that they will say are included in Buy Clean, and we will add a Buy Clean filter to our rating systems and standards filter, and the two tools will align. So that's coming. So I'm going to jump now into the transparency catalog demo, and again, reinforce that in the transparency catalog, we have EPDs from every program operator in North America. And good news, there's EPDs in 19 master format divisions and hundreds of sections. In the transparency catalog, there are manufacturers with products with both types of transparency disclosures, materials and EPDs, in 32 master format divisions and over 750 sections. So the good news is there really are enough manufacturers and enough products to primarily be able to select and specify products with transparency information to reward those manufacturers. So again, that really is the intent of the catalog. We're a mission-driven company, and our goal is to revolutionize the selection of building products, to reward those manufacturers for investing in making higher performing products, and ultimately to get the result we're all looking for, which is to reduce the impacts of the built environment on the natural environment and human health. I'm just going to pick up the pace a little bit. So for AECOs, it's a selection and specification tool. And again, I didn't say this before, so I'll say it now. It's free to use, and there is no login. So we don't collect user data, we'll never sell user data. We want everybody to have access. And for manufacturers, it's an educational marketing and sales enablement solution. Now, it makes it real simple for their customer-facing people to be able to find their products, find that transparency information, use social media tools to share it, have access to their own Google Analytics. We don't believe in selling analytics as separate. It's all really a turnkey solution. We deliver training. this webinar series manufacturers participate in so they can tell their stories. And so we use every medium we can to educate everybody because, as you can see, it's a big technical process that both sides of the coin need to continue to get educated on. And, you know, as Stacy pointed out, we are both in alignment about EPDs needing to be digitized, which is why we added all the EPDs in North America a year ago in January, because embodied carbon is an important consideration. It's not the only consideration. We want to make that easy for people to be able to find all the content they need to be able to make those trade-off decisions using the criteria that's important to them. But at the core of the design of the listing is that what's also problematic about disclosures is that they can be created for one product, but typically they're created for multiple products or even whole product lines or whole product families. And it's difficult, if not impossible, for regular people, salespeople, AECOs, to figure out which disclosures correlate with which products. And so the design of the listing in the catalog is specifically designed to address that problem. And so you can see in this table that the horizontal axis is the master format section, and we append the manufacturer's brand name so that you know what they call their products in that section. The vertical axis is the product name, which links to the product page on the manufacturer's website. We don't believe in managing a lot of content about manufacturers' products somewhere other than their website. It's difficult for them, as well as that's why they have websites. They want you to go there. So really the catalog is a pass-through to the manufacturer's sites. But then also in a glance, you'll be able to see what types of transparency, documentation, or disclosures they have for each of those products. At the end of the day, you don't care if this EPD is the same EPD for all of these products. You only care that this product has an EPD. But you can actually tell they're different EPDs because they have different EC3 results. And the same thing here, you don't care if that's the same declare label for each of those products, only that there is a declare label or an HPD, and you're able to go right there to access that content and those disclosures. So here's the quick transparency catalog demo. When you use the catalog, there's two primary ways you can use it. One is in early stage design. Typically people think about brands they like. And so on the front page of the catalog, we wanted people to be able to see every single brand in North America investing in product transparency all in one place. And you can scroll through, or you can use the find function in your browser to find those brands and then go directly to their listing. And now that we're here, a user again can look at each of these master format sections one at a time, or you can look at it everything all at once. This is great for a sales rep as well as anyone wanting to see all the products. Again, this is going to take you to the manufacturer's website, the product page right on their website should be the single source of truth. That's going to take you to the EPD, so you can download that. And that's going to take the user right into the EC3 tool to their digital EPD page, where you can see that comparison. So this particular product is well below the 20th percentile and way below the baseline. And if I'm a user and I had come in through the EC3 tool and drilled down to a particular product in the EPD, I'm able to come here to the listing, contact the manufacturer, contact the person in charge of transparency, and most importantly, get the spec. I can click here And now I've downloaded their 3-part spec, and there it is. And now you can go off and specify it. The other way to use the catalog is to use the master format filtering bar. So literally in one click, you can find every manufacturer in each master format division and section. I could pick a section now, but for this demo, I'm just going to go by division. And now you can see division 9 is pretty big. Very big. So it's over 300 brands and almost 3,500 products. And now you can use these filters in any order that you want to filter down to just the things you want to select or learn about. So here's a scenario. Say, for example, the team is starting the specification for a project in Division 9, and it's going to be a lead project or a lead-like project. You might say, all right, look, before we even go into any of these sections, just show me all the manufacturers who have EPDs for their products in Division 9. So right away, that brings it down to 100 brands and 1,700 products. So that's pretty significant. But you still might say, I still don't want to click through page by page, and I'm not going to filter by section yet. Let me just see what brands those are. And so the user can say, I want that one. I like these guys. I like these guys. And then I'm going to get those brands and their products with EPDs. And then you might say, well, geez, I've heard about Flexco, and I am interested in resilient tile flooring. I don't really know anything about them. Let me learn. And now you can click right there and go to the manufacturer's listing and find out everything about all the products that they have across all their master format divisions and sections, and contact the manufacturer, et cetera, et cetera. Now, the master format filtering, we designed it to allow people to do two things. One is to maybe find brands you're unfamiliar with, or two, to find solutions to the same problem that you might not have known existed. So everything, once you select 0920, every section within 0920 is going to be displayed. So what you're going to do is go in and then turn off what you're not interested in. But what it reminds you of is, oh, yeah, I'm going to be interested in plastering, gypsum plastering or cement plastering, but not right now. I'm not interested in board assemblies. I'm interested in supports, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not interested in those. And again, like I said, you're going to turn off everything that you're not interested in. And then it's still 11 brands, 34 products. You might say, great, I'm going to go for broke here. Show me all the manufacturers in these sections that have both EPDs and material disclosures. And you can go on and on and on. And you never have to go back to the front page. You can clear the filters and continue to do those kinds of investigations in each master format division. So we are at the top of our webinar hour. It looks like, Stacy, we've been knocking off the questions as they've come in. And it looks like there's only one question remaining. And yes, the answer is a transparency report is an EPD. We just call it a transparency report because we wanted to indicate that it was different. It is an EPD and is accepted for the green building rating systems like any other EPD. We just think ours is better. With that, we have some parting requests. Stacy, you want to get in your asks? Well, while you're thinking about it, I'll do ours. And our asks to you are to sign up for EC3 accounts, help EC3 fund material categories. Use the transparency catalog. It's free to use. There's no login. There's no ads. You can schedule a transparency catalog demo. We do those all the time for AEC firms, for small groups, large groups. And for manufacturers, talk to us about how to get your products into the catalog, especially if you have EPDs. Talk to us about creating new PCRs. Talk to us about creating any kind of EPD. We're here to help. And we thank you for giving us your time and attention today. Leave your comments on the way out, and we hope you have a great day. Stacy, you still there? All right. Well, I'm going to say goodbye for Stacy to you, and come again. Bye.